What if I told you that ancient Egyptian embalmers sometimes couldn't resist sleeping with beautiful corpses, or that pharaohs masturbated into the Nile River to keep their kingdom fertile? You're about to discover the most shocking intimacy rituals of ancient Egypt that will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about this ancient civilization. Picture this. You're in ancient Egypt, land of golden masks and towering pyramids. But behind all that grandeur lies a world obsessed with power, divinity, and desire in ways that would make modern society blush. The Egyptians didn't just build monuments to the gods. They created an entire sexual culture around them, complete with divine masturbation, crocodile dung contraceptives, and mythological revenge plots involving lettuce. Let's start with something that sounds like it came straight out of a horror movie. Herodotus, the ancient Greek historian, wrote about embalmers who couldn't control themselves around freshly deceased women, particularly those deemed beautiful. These sacred morticians, trusted with preparing bodies for the afterlife, were sometimes caught engaging in sexual acts with corpses. The horror of this practice led families to develop a chilling precaution. They would deliberately delay handing over a young woman's body to the embalmer, allowing it to decompose just enough to make her undesirable. Imagine having to make that calculation about your own daughter. But necrophilia wasn't the only shocking aspect of Egyptian sexuality. Their creation myths turned solo pleasure into a cosmic event. According to their beliefs, the god Adam created himself from the chaos of the void, and then, alone and aroused, he masturbated. From that single act, he produced the gods Shu and Tefnut, literally birthing civilization through semen. This wasn't seen as crude or shameful. It was the ultimate creative act. So revered was this origin story that ceremonial masturbation became part of religious rituals, and pharaohs were said to pleasure themselves into the Nile River to ensure its fertility. Yes, you heard that right. The divine rulers of Egypt performed sacred solo acts on the banks of their life-giving river. Now let's talk about birth control, because the ancient Egyptians weren't just going at it without concern. Their methods were both ingenious and absolutely disgusting. Women used a bizarre blend of crocodile dung, dates, acacia gum, and honey inserted into the vagina to prevent pregnancy. Before you gag completely, modern science actually backs up some of this madness. Acacia contains lactic acid, which acts as a natural spermicide, and they even used honey mixed with sodium bicarbonate as an early form of chemical contraception. But still, crocodile poop to ward off children? That's some serious dedication to family planning. Speaking of creative solutions, there's a persistent rumor about Cleopatra that perfectly captures how people imagined Egypt's rulers blending royalty with raw human desire. The story goes that when her legendary lovers weren't around, the queen made herself a primitive vibrator by sealing angry bees inside a hollow gourd or papyrus tube. The buzzing allegedly caused the contraption to vibrate, offering some solo entertainment. While historians can't verify this tale, the rumor itself reveals how the Egyptian elite were imagined to pursue pleasure with the same innovation they applied to architecture and medicine. But perhaps nothing was more normalized in Egyptian culture than royal incest. Their mythology is packed with divine brother-sister couples like Osiris and Isis, or Shu and Tefnut. The gods did it, so naturally, royalty followed suit. Pharaohs routinely married their sisters to keep the bloodline pure, a practice that backfired spectacularly over generations. Take King Tutankhamun, whose genetic studies reveal the devastating cost of centuries of inbreeding. A cleft palate, curved spine, club foot, and degenerative bone disease. The boy king's golden mask hid a body ravaged by his family's obsession with divine purity. Here's where Egyptian culture gets really interesting. They didn't care about virginity at all. Unlike Romans, who tied female chastity to religious virtue, Egyptians saw premarital sex as completely normal, carrying no stigma as long as both parties were unmarried. But once you tied the knot, especially as a woman, fidelity became sacred. A woman caught cheating could face whipping, mutilation, or even death. A man caught with a married woman faced the same brutal consequences. But if he was just fooling around with an unmarried woman, society might whisper, but the law stayed out of it. The Egyptians had some truly bizarre beliefs about biology that influenced their sexual practices. They believed semen didn't originate in the testicles but in the spinal column, with one sacred vertebra creating this life-giving fluid. This strange theory persisted for centuries, with even Plato echoing it, calling semen a soft flow from the spine. It sounds ridiculous to us, but it shows how closely they tied biology to spirituality, treating bodily functions as divine mysteries. Now here's something that will blow your mind about Egyptian artistic sensibilities. They thought images of humans having intercourse were more offensive than pictures of humans coupling with animals. Hieroglyphs dating back to 3000 BCE depict what appears to be bestiality, but scholars argue these might actually be symbolic representations of humans with gods, who often took animal forms. What seemed like animal-human intercourse was actually divine-human merger, making it sacred rather than obscene. Despite their squeamishness about human pornography, the Egyptians did create the Turin erotic papyrus, one of the oldest examples of illustrated adult content. This nearly 9-foot-long scroll features graphic scenes of a disheveled man and woman in increasingly acrobatic positions, including one in a chariot. But scholars now believe it was satire, not stimulation. A joke, not a guide, poking fun at sexual excess while still being surprisingly graphic for such a prudish society. Perhaps the most shocking tale involves the gods Seth and Horus in a story dripping with sexual politics and divine revenge. Seth attempts to sexually dominate Horus, knowing that being the receiver would strip him of divine legitimacy. But Horus catches Seth's semen in his hand and throws it in the river. Then, in a wild twist of cunning, Isis spreads Horus's semen on lettuce, Seth's favorite food. When Seth unknowingly eats it, the gods declare he has been penetrated. Divine power literally hung in the balance over a sexual act and some manipulated vegetables. The first recorded instance of oral sex also belongs to Egypt, found in the myth of Osiris and Isis. After Isis reassembles her murdered husband's body, she discovers she's missing one crucial piece, his phallus. So she fashions a replacement and allegedly brings him back to life through fellatio. This wasn't just devotion or desire, it was resurrection through erotic ritual, showing how deeply sexuality was woven into their concepts of life, death, and rebirth. Ancient Egyptian sexuality wasn't about shame or simple pleasure. It was about power, creation, magic, and the divine. Their views on sex, though foreign and sometimes horrifying to modern sensibilities, offer an unfiltered look into a civilization where gods were born from solo acts. Pharaohs made love to sisters, and lettuce could decide the fate of empires. These weren't just cultural quirks. They were fundamental beliefs that shaped one of history's greatest civilizations, proving that human sexuality has always been far more complex and varied than we might imagine.